right, so my name is Sean Seepersad again from Child Family and Consumer Sciences. This number 1 means this is my first Pecha Kucha ever, even though I've given it to lots of students. And I have to admit that I did not practice 10 to 15 times on it. So I may suck somewhere in between here and be like, crap, my slide. Well, so just to explain where I'm coming from, one of the problems I found was that my PowerPoint slides really suck big time. My slides aren't effective in class. My students aren't engaged when they see my PowerPoint slides. And it's quite typical for me to do this kind of thing. Okay? So one of my first main problems is that I found myself reading everything off of the slide. This made things very boring in class. Students could just as easily read off the slide as I could read off the slide. So why am I here in the first place? I could leave my PowerPoint up in Blackboard. Another problem that I found was that students would just be taking notes. So I'd have the slide up, and they're just busy taking notes, and they're not listening to what I'm saying. They're just listening to what's in there, and they're not paying attention to me. And then I discovered this amazing book called Presentation Zen. And basically at the introduction, it says 95% of presentations suck. Me, guilty of that. And so Gar Reynolds kind of introduced me to a lot of interesting ideas about how to revamp my slides. Some I'll share. One is make things simple. So you really want to think about what you're putting on your slide, what's important, what needs to be there, what doesn't need to be there. One of the people in the book said you shouldn't have more than 4 or 5 words on a particular slide. If you have more, it's too much. Another one is be illustrative. And so he had a lot of things about putting pictures that represent kind of the point that you want to say. And I think Travis really talked about that as well, too, that people don't have time to read a lot of text, but they can grasp in an instant by looking at a picture. Planning. And so this is the other thing, too, is kind of really plan out what your lectures are, what you want to say in your lectures. Be deliberate. So, and he's not talking about Pecha Kuchas particularly, but he's just saying in general, kind of, when you're doing presentations, kind of think about that. And so at the end of the day, when people look at your slides, they shouldn't be able to understand exactly what you're talking about, okay? Because you are the person that needs to be there to explain what's going on. The slides are just an illustrative point of things that you're trying to say. And his last main idea I wanted to highlight was, he said your presentation should have 3 things: the slides that you're going to show, your own lecture notes that you might have, and handouts that you want to give the audience for the class. So that and the handouts you can use to provide more information and details. So, big red X, that means that my presentations still suck. They're getting better, but they're not quite at the stage where Gar Reynolds would like me to be at, I think. There are a number of reasons for that. One is that it takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to kind of redo your slides the way you want to do them. And so I've just tried to start by doing small steps at a time, making my slides less wordy, trying to put some more pictures in there. Really thinking about what it is I want to do with my presentation. The other thing I discovered was Pecha Kucha. So I found this in Gar Reynolds' book. He had a little excerpt there about Pecha Kuchas, and I thought, this might not work for lectures, but this might be a great thing to have students do. Because students do awful presentations sometimes. And so they're up there, blah, 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 right? Nobody's listening. They go over it. You tell them 5 minutes, and they're going 20 minutes. And like, I just have one more slide. And doesn't quite work out. It isn't effective. So I used Pecha Kuchas. In my class, I teach a family relations class. And I tell them I want you to do a family story. And use the Pecha Kucha to tell a story about your family and relate it to a concept that we're covering in class. And there have been some really good Pecha Kuchas. One student, for example, last semester did one where she talked about her mother, after gave birth to her, and had the whole experience in Thailand and had to run away from the war. And as she was doing it, the rest of the class was following this journey that her mother made, from there to here. And then there are really bad ones, too. So sometimes they don't tell a story. It's just they talk about each member in their family, or they just talk about concepts in the book, or sometimes it's too rigid. But if it is done really well, I think students, instead of being these kind of individualized people that don't know who their classmates are, over the course of the semester, kind of begin to make connections with other students. And like, wow, I understand how my family is different or similar from other families, in that everybody's family sucks sometimes. So part of this presentation here is I'd like to encourage everybody to kind of rethink the way that they do their presentations, their PowerPoint slides, and really think about if you put a lot of stuff up there, are people really paying attention to it? And then this last slide is about other ways of thinking about how you can present information differently. One is, and there's another brown bag or something on this at some other point, but this is Prezi, and it gives you kind of like a timeline thing, and you can kind of zoom into different things, and it allows for the big picture and small pictures at the same time. And I'm done.